All right, let's jump right in. We're talking about the subcontract today. You know, that one document on every single project that can literally make or break your business. It's the rule book for your job, but honestly, it's often the most misunderstood. So today, we're going to pull it apart and figure out what you're really signing.
Because, let's be real. It all boils down to this, doesn't it? You can pour your heart and soul into the job, do the best work on site, hit every single deadline, but if that contract isn't solid, getting what you're owed can turn into a nightmare. This isn't just boring paperwork, this is your bottom line.
So to really get a grip on your subcontract, you have to know where you fit into the grand scheme of things. First, let's look at the project's chain of command.
It's a really simple top-down structure. At the very top, you've got the owner. They're the one with the vision and, more importantly, the money. They hire the main contractor to basically run the whole show. And then that contractor hires you, the subcontractor, to handle your specific piece of the puzzle. Whether that's drywall, electrical, plumbing, you name it. And this is where that subcontract officially comes into play. Now pay close attention to the last part of that definition, because this is everything. It binds you to the main project's contract documents. See, it's not some standalone agreement. Think of it more like a legal tether. It connects you, your work, and all your responsibilities directly to that big primary contract between the owner and the contractor. And that leads us to probably the single most important concept you need to know.
Which brings us right to Section 2, the flow-down clause. Seriously, if you remember only one thing from our chat today, make it this. This little clause is the absolute heart of the subcontract.
Okay, so that's the fancy legal way of saying it. But what does it actually mean? Well, think of this clause as the pipeline that takes all the rules from the main contract and sends them flowing right down the chain to you. It's how the contractor makes sure you are legally on the hook to meet the exact same standards they promised the owner.
So the core rule is this simple. Whatever applies to the contractor now applies to you. Imagine the main contract is this huge, thick rule book for the entire game. The flow-down clause doesn't give you a new, smaller rule book. Nope. It just hands you the original one and says, see all this stuff? You have to follow it too.
And this, right here, is the single biggest mistake a subcontractor can make. You can't just flip to Section 7B drywall and call it a day. You are bound by the entire package of documents. That means the general conditions, the architectural drawings, the project schedule, the whole shebang. Ignoring the full contract is like trying to build a house with only one page of the blueprints. You're just asking for trouble.
All right, now let's get to the part of the contract that causes the most fights, the most stress, and the most late-night phone calls, the battle over getting paid.
Now, you're going to see two main types of payment clauses, and the difference between them is absolutely massive. On one hand, you have pay when paid. This is mostly about timing. The contractor says, I'll pay you, but it'll be after I get my check from the owner. It's risky, sure, but you can usually plan for it. But then you have pay if paid. This isn't about timing, it's about risk. It means if the owner never pays the contractor, for any reason at all, then the contractor has zero legal obligation to pay you, ever. That one little word, if, shifts all the risk of the owner not paying directly onto your shoulders.
Yeah, exactly. With a pay-if-paid clause, you, the subcontractor, are suddenly taking on a huge gamble. You're not just financing your part of the job with your own labor and materials, you're also betting that the owner won't have any issues paying the main contractor. You're taking on their risk.
And because this risk is so enormous, a lot of savvy subcontractors just draw a line in the sand. They will not accept these terms. They'll negotiate to get those clauses struck right out of the contract, and they'll insist that their payment is tied to their work being done and accepted, not when or if the main contractor gets paid. But this brings up a pretty obvious question, right? How can a contract legally put you in a spot where you might do perfect work and still never get paid, just because of a fight between two other parties? And the answer is, sometimes it's not legal. In a lot of places, courts have actually ruled that pay-if-paid clauses can't be enforced. And the logic is pretty simple. Your contract is with the contractor, not the owner. You have no legal relationship, no privity, as they call it, with the owner. So the contractor's problems with the owner shouldn't cancel their direct and separate duty to pay you. But, and this is a big but, this changes all the time from state to state, so you absolutely have to know the local laws where you're working. Okay, so let's wrap all this up with something practical you can use. Think of this last section as your pre-flight checklist before you even think about signing on the dotted line.
Your subcontract isn't just about the physical work.
It's about all the paperwork that goes with it. You've got to be ready for a list of requirements like this one. They're going to ask for things like performance bonds to guarantee your work, all sorts of insurance, maybe even certified payrolls. And you'll also be on the hook for formal payment applications, submittals like samples and mock-ups, and warranties long after the job is finished. Every single one of these items costs time and money, so you have to make sure you've accounted for all of it before you agree to a price.
And so we end right back where we started. After all this, from the project hierarchy to that critical flow-down clause to the nasty fights over payment, it all comes down to this one final, fundamental question. Because when you put your signature on that page, you're not just agreeing to your little piece of the pie, you're agreeing to the whole story. So make sure you've actually read it.